Hey, this is Vu, and today I'm going to be talking about trading advantages. And this is going to be something that, as many of my videos, seems fairly basic to a lot of people, but it's one of those things that's kind of like a building block. It's extremely important for everybody to recognize, and it does build into a lot of much more complicated scenarios, so thinking about it definitely isn't a bad thing. And really what it is, at its core, is kind of realizing what your advantages are and how to execute on those. And the reason I bring this up is because I see in so many games, and especially I've noticed this because I'm trying to rank my account out of MGE right now, where it decayed to while I wasn't playing for a while. So many times people just make this huge mistake where they don't realize that there are more advantages than just numbers. And especially at these lower levels, people seem to forget that there are gun advantages, which people do remember for the most part, but the thing that people forget the most is knowledge advantages. And these happen all across a majority of the maps in a million different scenarios, but probably the most significant scenario where I've seen it recently is on Dust 2 at Long A. And the reason I use Dust 2 is because there's the obvious knowledge advantage when a terrorist spots the cross and sees how many people cross. On every other map, you don't have this sort of obvious knowledge, and so you can't use this scenario quite as significantly. But I see so often, for example, a counter-terrorist team will have 3 people cross and it'll be called for the terrorists, and they'll head out long with, for example, 4 players. And with these 4 players, they manage to get it into a 3-on-4, not in their favor. They have 3 players left and the enemy has 4, but they trap someone, for example, in pit or on this wall here. And I've seen a bunch of separate times people will know this player's trapped in pit, know that the enemy doesn't have anybody there to support them, and then just fall off. Maybe thinking that, well, we're down in numbers, we should reset or something, but you have to realize with this sort of knowledge advantage, because the counter-terrorists don't know for sure that someone's not watching mid, someone's not watching B tons push, because of course the terrorists only sent 4 mid, and theoretically the opper in middle that saw the cross could have also shot at them. So the counter-terrorists are thinking that he could be anywhere. And the terrorists know for a fact that there's only one player A, they know where he's trapped, and they know that nobody's rotated fast enough, either because you can think it through in your head, nobody could have rotated that fast, or their opper's still picking mid and they know that nobody rotated. And so this is kind of a pretty basic example because it's so obvious the knowledge you have. You obviously know that there are 3 on the B side of the map, which means that there's only 1 in pit, which means that you can easily pressure this player. Now, it's not necessary that you need to do this every single time, of course. It's not always the best play, but just think about what happens when you get this kill. So if you can think about it, if you don't get this kill, if you back up, now their team has a reset, which means that you lose a lot of your knowledge. This player can rotate out of pit, a player can rotate over to A to support and play car, and you lose that knowledge advantage that you have. So it's a hard reset, and they continue having long control. However, if you manage to get this kill, even with a trade, you don't allow the hard reset. You're going to still have knowledge of this whole area here, and the opponent is going to be the team without any knowledge, without any sort of an advantage, because they don't know if you pushed up long, they don't know if you fell back, especially if you smoke the cross, then fall back. They have to assume that you've started to cross. They have to play it in a certain way because of their lack of knowledge. So even if you trade here, that's still a huge advantage. And of course, you can also think about it that a 3-on-4 is less advantageous to the terrorists than a 2-on-3. And the reason for that is that the counter-terrorists have to spread and cover mid, A, and B, whereas the terrorists can just group up and go one way. So, for example, a 1-on-2 is better for the terrorists than a 2-on-3, theoretically, a lot of the time, because the counter-terrorists have to spread out so much, and you can go to so many different angles. Although that's not always true, there are plenty of scenarios where a 2-on-3 is better, but these are often reliant on that knowledge itself, where if you have a 2-on-3 and you have some knowledge advantage, then it's just as good. You can often be in situations where where you might be down in a 2-on-3 or you might be down in a 3-on-4, but because of the knowledge, because of your map pressure or positioning, you can actually have the advantage in those scenarios. Obviously, the most ridiculous example of this being you're in a 3-on-4, but you've got the bomb planted for long. I mean, you could even theoretically be in a 2-on-4 with the bomb planted for long and have an advantage if you play it correctly, because of course you have a positioning advantage, which isn't quite the same as a knowledge advantage that I'm talking about here, where a knowledge advantage and a positioning advantage kind of go hand in hand because that positioning gives you knowledge. However, I don't think they're necessarily the same thing. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I hope this helped.